The pre-learning lab process was extremely painless. Essentially what happened was there was a need identified that some other teachers could benefit from observing something happening in my classroom. We talked through it as a teacher instructional coach team. I think it took all of like a part of my planning period one time to talk about what exactly is this going to look like. We exchanged some emails. We set a date and a time. And the other thing I needed to do was fill out a section of a document to explain to other teachers what they would be seeing and what I was hoping that they would look for. And that took me all of like 8 minutes as well. So it was very painless.
Yeah. Structure of a learning lab, there are 3 parts. The first part, as stated, is the pre-brief. And this is where we'll meet before the lesson takes place, before the observation takes place, and to go through with participants about the process being reflective. And so some norms that we established during this time would be just to help teachers get thinking or get in the right mindset of going in with the intention to learn something, a takeaway, a strategy, a classroom management system. There's many different takeaways that could be kind of at the center of a learning lab. And so during the pre-brief, it's important for us to put that lens on, that when a participant goes into a learning lab, that we are not being evaluative or judgmental, that we are being reflective and looking for a takeaway to implement in our own teaching, content, or practice. In addition, we want to set up some norms as far as how to interact during the observation. Some lessons it's more appropriate for participants to engage with students, ask questions, interact with kids. And during other lessons, it would not be appropriate for participants coming into another classroom to engage, ask questions, and be interactive. So during the pre-brief, we set up all those norms. We also hear from the host teacher during this time. This is where the teacher may share learning targets, as well as look-fors that the host teacher is looking to get some feedback on.
Having other teachers in the room for the learning lab during the lesson was not even slightly disruptive for my students, and all of those things were as successful as they would have been without teachers in the room. So it was entirely non-disruptive, and I don't regret having people there.
It was comfortable. It was a group of peers. I learned a lot about myself, and hopefully people took some things away. I think they did. They said they did. It was not intimidating like I thought it would be. So it was good.
The last part of a learning lab is called the debrief. This is a time where the host teacher, the attendees, and the instructional coaches meet back together sitting in a circle to share observations made during the learning lab. These observations are shared in a non-judgmental format where the attendees share out information using sentence stems such as I noticed, I saw, or I heard. Round 1 of the debrief is where the attendees share out observations based on what they saw as far as the impact on student learning. This is done in a whip-around fashion in which the attendees keep going around the circle sharing their observations in a non-judgmental way until everybody has had a chance to share all things on their list. Then we move to round 2. Round 2 is where the attendees share observations, again in a non-judgmental way, about the instructional practices that the teacher used. We could call them the teacher moves if you wanted to. And again, they are done in a whip-around fashion so that everybody who has attended the Learning Lab has a chance to share things they have written down as far as teacher instructional practices. Round 3 gives the host teacher a moment to reflect on the things that were shared by the attendees. Often the host teacher asks the attendees to look for something, which is shared at the pre-brief. And this would be a time where she has listened to the attendees talk about those look-fors, and now the host teacher can give some feedback on things that surprised her, things that she wanted confirmed, and any other thoughts that she has from the attendees on what they have shared. And then the last part, round 4, involves the attendees sharing out their next steps. What were their thoughts from the Learning Lab? What are they going to walk away with? What is something they'd like to try in their classroom? So all 4 rounds of the debrief are very, very important, but also not only beneficial to the attendees, but the host teacher as well.
I think, it sounds intimidating at first, but it's really not. It's kept very factual and very non-judgmental. So when teachers are providing feedback, it's this is what I noticed, this is what I heard, this is what I saw. It's not I saw or you did this. It's not about the teacher, it's about the class as a whole and the learning environment as a whole. And so I actually learned a lot about myself, but about my students too and how they interact with each other. So I would encourage people to do that because you're getting facts from other people, and teachers can't see everything all the time. Even though we tell our students we can see everything all the time, we can't. So I think it's really good feedback for anyone to do.
The post-lesson debrief was undoubtedly the most valuable part of this entire process for me. I can't speak to the other people involved, but for me it was really great to hear feedback from other adults in the room. I think it's really easy as the year goes on for all of us to become kind of down on ourselves, start doubting what we're doing, the effectiveness of it. And my takeaway from the debrief was I had a lot of affirmation, not only for what I was doing with Zoom, but for what I was doing in my classroom in general. It got me thinking about some exciting possibilities of alternative things I could be doing with my Zoom students. It helped me to reflect on the things that I was doing well and celebrate those successes, as well as start pushing me in new directions to think about other things that I could be doing to build upon those successes. It was overall an extremely positive experience that I learned a lot from, possibly maybe as much as or even more than what the observing teachers took from it. It was really good to have discussions with other adults about things I don't often get to do in my day-to-day routine. So it was great.
Into the reader, and what does that include? Do you remember?
Quotes and dialogue.
Yeah, way to go.